Yeah, I know we started, but nobody's here yet, so I'm just stroking my beard until somebody shows up. Just stroking my beard. Don't know where Ed is. Don't know where Nope is. And Jay. Somebody should show up. Wait, I see somebody is here. Could be somebody just looking in, but here we are. How is everybody doing tonight? It is June 21st. Oh, wow. Wow, we are like halfway through the year. And that is pretty crazy. Um, yeah, it was like nothing. I mean, like a day ago, it seemed like it was January 2nd. And now we're June 21st. Also, aren't we supposed to be changing officially into summer? So there's a distracting little email chain or text message chain going on where Lisa sent to my family, happy Father's Day, and the fact that hardly anybody actually knows or anybody is a father in the chat. I think there's one father. So, of course, there's a lot of jokes about when people call me daddy, So that's going on my phone right now, and I kind of stepped away from it. And it's a strange chat. It really is. So, Mr. Nope, hello, sir. How are you? Topic-wise tonight, I'm rewatching the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, and I'm through 3 of the 5. Now, I still haven't seen the last one. I have not seen No Time to Die, which I meant to watch the other day, but I went, you know what? I should watch all the other ones first because unlike the previous Bonds, these all build up to the overall story. This is the beginning, middle, and end. This is him getting his 00 license and then his final fate. And we see him over the years. And it's been an interesting journey so far. I'm just, like I said, I just finished Skyfall. And if you guys are Daniel Craig fans or have followed along with those particular Bond films, everybody loves Casino Royale. And I will admit that it is my favorite Bond film. And if I had to, like somebody goes, okay, I've never seen a James Bond film. I'll give you one movie, show me that movie, and I'll, try to get me hooked. I would use Casino Royale. I mean, there's some good ones. There's some really good ones. GoldenEye is good. There's some really good Sean Connery ones. Growing up, hey, we're dopes. My first James Bond was actually Moonraker, which shows you how old I am. And I met Carolyn Monroe, who was in, I believe, The Spy Who Loved Me. I met her at a convention along with Jack Kirby and a few others. Oh, no problem. Hey, Ed. So, yeah. But for me, Casino Royale is probably the strongest Bond movie because great song. I love the Chris Cornell, You Know My Name. I think Daniel Craig is excellent. I think Eva Green is excellent. I think Jeffrey Wright is a great Felix Leiter. I like the character of Mathis. Le Chiffre, Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre is really good. You get the overall arc of the villain, Mr. White, who appears in 4 of the Bond movies, which is rare for a character to carry over that much when he's a villain. the setup of Quantum that leads into Spectre. I mean, Casino Royale has it all. It has a little gadgety stuff, but not much. You know, it's more pure spycraft, and the opening scene with him getting his double O, the parkour scene in the construction site. I just think it's the strongest one. Now, after that, I thought, I remember seeing Quantum of Solace in the theater and not liking it as much. It just didn't stand as well as Casino Royale. It seemed like a letdown to me. And it basically was, but Quantum of Solace had a lot going against it. It was done around the time of the writer's strike. So they didn't have the ability to massage the script and, as they went, it was pretty much once they started filming, that was the script they had. And they couldn't do much. Also, it's the shortest Bond. It's probably shot more like a Bourne film, like a Bourne Identity film, with the handheld cameras and stuff like that. But I will say that rewatching it shortly after watching Casino Royale improves Quantum of Solace greatly, because it really does just feel like an addition to the first movie. And it is. It's Mathis returns. You find out more about Mr. I mean, the opening scene is the ending of Casino Royale, where he confronts Mr. White. It's the next second. It's what happens right after that. There's a lot of great action. I mean, that movie, Quantum of Solace, when you look at it, there is a car chase, 2 fights, a boat chase, all within the first half hour. A bunch more fights, an airplane battle. I mean, it's my only knock against Quantum of Solace upon rewatching is I thought the final set piece made no sense. It was just, we're going to have this fight in a desert, in a hotel in the middle of the desert, out in the middle of nowhere. You could have done it so much better. You could have done it at Mr. Green's house. You could have done it at the palace. I mean, there are so many places you could have had the final fight that this boring, generic-looking hotel just wasn't anything. There are so many places, so many things they could have done better with that final fight. And it's not saying the fight was bad. I'm just saying that the setting was not something we cared about. It wasn't set up. It just was like, oh, they're at this hotel. Let's take them there. Craig and Brosnan were the worst Bonds. Oh, let me turn this on so everybody can see it. Craig and Brosnan were the worst Bonds. Lazenby was better than Craig. I think Dalton was the Bond that Craig tried to be. Okay, Brandon. By the way, hello, Brandon. I didn't know you were watching. It's good to see you. It's been a long time. I don't agree, but that's the thing, is that's the great thing about movies, is there are ones, everybody likes and dislikes different things. So you didn't like Brosnan and Craig. I am partial to them. Craig, because I think Casino Royale hit right at the right time for me. Brosnan, I was already a fan of Brosnan from Remington Steele days. So when he finally got the part, it just clicked for me. Sean Connery was good, but the films are very dated. That's the only knock I have against him. Roger Moore was fun, but he never quite, he was always a saint to me, And I thought Dalton was okay. I didn't have a problem with Dalton. It also depends on the supporting cast around him. Like, I like Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter. I thought Joe Don Baker was okay as, he was pretty good as Felix Leiter. The guy from Tattletales or whatever the hell that comedy that sitcom was, or whatever that guy was from, who was Dalton's Felix Leiter. That just didn't click for me, and I don't remember any of who Felix was for the other character or the other actors. So Lazenby, I thought was interesting. Probably Lazenby was probably the one that fit Ian Fleming's description of Bond the most. But the guy wasn't an actor. He didn't, he got better as the movie went on, and the ending scene with Diana Riggs and the death and everything. He actually did that well, but in the early filming, he's just stiff. But again, it depends on what you're looking for in these movies. You're going to find ones you like and different and it wouldn't surprise me if you took, a room full of 50 people, that you're going to find a pretty interesting balance of who likes what. See, now Ed likes Craig the best and Dalton second. So that's what I mean. It's subjective. It's like the Batman movies. Okay, there are people out there who love what Matt Reeves just did with and is doing with Robert Pattinson. Other people absolutely love the Ben Affleck version. There's those who will die on the hill of Christian Bale, and there are those who will always say Kevin Conroy, best Batman ever. You got the Michael Keaton ones. You got Val Kilmer. There probably isn't anybody holding up a flag for George Clooney, but there are for Adam West. So it's all subjective, And that's the interesting thing about these. When we talk about them in superlatives, we tend to leave off the, this one's the best. We leave off the, in my opinion, or for me. And it becomes this defense thing. You claim something is your favorite, and then you feel like you have to defend it. And I don't think you should. You don't have to. If your favorite Doctor Who is Paul McGann, because that was your introduction to the character, was the Fox movie they did, then that's your favorite Doctor. Good. Enjoy it. He's a very nice gentleman, by the way. I got to meet him at a convention. Nobody was around. I went up and chit-chatted with him for a while. Great guy. He was also in the Three Musketeers movie with Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland. He was great. So you don't have to defend your favorites. You don't have to explain them. Who's your favorite is your favorite. Now, and I think that's a lot of, eventually we're going to switch over to Supergirl, but I think that's kind of the topic in a way, is that you're allowed to have your opinion, but you have to let other people have theirs. And you don't have to fight about it. I mean, nobody has to defend why they like something. Did you like the new Superman movie? Terrific. You didn't? Well, okay. You preferred Man of Steel. Fine. Oh, Christopher Reeves is the only Superman to you. Terrific. That's for you. Okay. I have my opinions. You have yours. But they're opinions, We're not talking facts here. Ed says Christopher Eccleston was my favorite Doctor. I absolutely loved Eccleston. And he probably is mine too, just because he felt like the Doctor, I thought, Peter Capaldi was another great Doctor. I liked Tennant. I liked Matt Smith. I have only watched a few of the Jodie Whittaker ones, And that wasn't any particular reason other than where I was in my life. I've watched some of the Nakuti Gatwa ones, and I thought he was fun. I did. I thought he kind of embraced. He was the closest to Tom Baker for me, which was the earliest Doctor I remember seeing, and I remember Paul McGann movie too. So, you could make a case for any of the Doctors, but you don't have to. You could just say, "That's my Doctor. That's my favorite. That's you know, whoever is your favorite Batman, whoever is your favorite Superman, Doctor, James Bond, excellent. Stand proud." But like I said, you don't have to fight about it. Mr. Noble likes David Tennant. Perfect. That's the thing is that, and we see that online right now. And I've been posting on Facebook my thoughts on these movies. And not only are people chiming in with their thoughts, but these are some people that I wasn't even sure knew I existed. Joseph Michael Linsner, great artist, amazing artist, love his stuff. He didn't like Skyfall. I can understand that. I liked Skyfall, but there was a lot of problems with Skyfall. There's a lot of logic errors or problems with Skyfall. A lot of convenience, plot conveniences and stuff like that. Every once in a while, Howard Chaykin will pop up in one of my comments and make tell you what he thinks. And it's like, I didn't know Chaykin knew who I was, let alone that he would actually pop up in my comments. So, but that's the thing is you're allowed to have your opinion. And, like I said, we're seeing that with Supergirl right now. Well, let me finish with Bond because I got 2 movies left. I haven't seen No Time to Die. I remember seeing Spectre, and I know Dave Bautista's in it. I know who plays Blofeld. It seems like a good movie. I remember not disliking it, but a lot of times the Bond movies feel very convoluted to me. Like we've added 3 extra scenes because we wanted to go to Monaco and we wanted to go to Saudi Arabia or something like that. We wanted to be globetrotting, so we added these 3 extra scenes, even though they didn't really need to be in the movie. We wanted to add a car chase, so we went to the German Autobahn, or it's like, okay, a little editing probably could trim them up a little bit. They don't need to be 2.5 hours, but that's from a writer point of view. There's a lot of superfluous stuff in a James Bond movie, but yeah, I like them. I enjoy them, and like I said, I've 3 in, got 2 to go, and I will let you guys know what I think of Spectre and finally No Time to Die when I see it. I know that that's the end for Craig. I'd say the thing I hope for in the upcoming Bond, what they do next, I hope they go a somewhat unknown younger actor because then they can be around a while. I hope they start exploring MI6 a little more. You've got these other double O's. You could expand. You could create other agents that are completely different from Bond. Bond is a unique entity. He is a somewhat privileged, even though he's an orphan, he has somewhat privilege and arrogance to him and a womanizer. And to me, that's James Bond. But it doesn't mean you have to only make characters like that. You know, instead of changing Bond to go in a different direction, give us a new 004, a new 008. You know, you've got all these numbers you can use, letters and numbers. Technically, use the O's or O's. And explore the MI6 and the world of spycraft with a different type of person. So, Glenn Powell could be interesting. Yeah, I'm mixed on Glenn Powell. I haven't seen anything I absolutely love him in yet. Um, Other than I like his Chad Powers TV show, which is weird because that's not something I thought I would like, but I like Chad Powers. Mads is great. Mads is great at doing everything. I was in a convention at a convention in San Jose. I had just arrived, and I gave my truck to the valet, and I was waiting for them to unload the bags and stuff from the back. And I stood up on the curb, and Mads Nicholson walked out to have a cigarette and stood next to me and lit up and talked to me for a minute. You know, I don't think he knew. I mean, I don't think he knew I was with the convention or whatever. He just came out. We had a few words back and forth. Nothing in particular, just about what the day was like and the weather and the convention. You know, the how busy it was. But just him sitting there smoking a cigarette was very cinematic. He had a way about him of smoking that, you know, if you wanted to create a character and, you know, kind of aura farming a character, just him smoking a cigarette and you kind of get this cool, maybe dangerous looking guy just from smoking a cigarette. So that was kind of interesting. Oh, yeah. See, I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, which is weird because I've seen a bunch of clips from it. I just haven't sat down and watched the movie. I did see the original one in the theater when it came out, so I should watch the other one. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. You know, like I said, for me, I kind of want when Daniel Craig got the job of Bond. I knew a couple of the movies he had been in. I may have seen one or two, but not that I would have picked out his character. Layer Cake, I think, was one of them. That for me was okay. So I can go into this without any baggage. You know, when I went into Pierce Brosnan's first movie, Goldeneye, I was still looking at him like Remington Steele. So there was a certain suaveness and debonair and stuff that, you know, made sense, that worked with the character. But, you know, and he pulled that off. Had he gone in and been a completely different thing, it might have been shocking. So, yeah, just kind of interesting, you know. Um, but yeah, I hope that the next Bond is somewhat of a nobody, doesn't come in with baggage, can capture both the suaveness without it being over the top, but also the brutishness. You know, Judy Dench M referred to him as a blunt object once, and that to me is, you know, Bond is a force of nature. Bond needs to be this almost old school film noir detective type character merged with the Thin Man, you know, just stylish. And he needs to be able to float between those two worlds as needed. So I think that takes an interesting actor, it takes somebody who can really pull that off. And we've seen it with most of the Bonds. I don't know if Roger Moore could ever get to that thuggish way, but Dalton could, Brosnan could. I mean, where he kills Sophia Marceau, uh, that one, that was the one that won it for me there. But let's see. The whole time I watched Remington Steele, I thought Brosnan would be a great Bond, but when he finally did it, Bond, it didn't click for me for some reason. I didn't care for his portrayal. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, when it comes to Bond, that like I said, I also hope they expand on the universe so that all these people coming out going, Bond should be a woman this time. Bond should be black this time. Why not just give them a female 00 and let her be her own character and her own name and all of that? Give them a black 00 and then follow that character as well, so that it doesn't come with the bondage of James Bond. Because it's always going to be this. When you go against a character like that and change it, you're going to have negativity, because there are some people that want the character to be what they grew up with or what they've always watched. And others people want changes. And I get that. I can see it from both sides. So why not give them, create an agent that can be what everyone else wants. And then the people who want Bond to be the way he is in the books and stuff, you still get that. But they can look over at the new 004 and go, oh, a new character. Let me check this out. So just seems to make sense to me. But Ed asks, originally wasn't James Bond like a pseudonym for the spy, and it wasn't really his? No. That's a theory that's been going around for a long time, and one that a lot of people want to be real, because then they can go and say all of these movies exist. When Lazenby stepped in and stepped out, oh, he was just a filler James Bond. But no, that's never been. And Skyfall put the final nail in that coffin, because if you remember in Skyfall, we see his parents' grave, and his parents are Andrew Bond, and I think it's like Monique Devereaux Bond. So, the producers knew that this was a popular opinion, and still kind of went, no, we're not doing that. And I've loved that idea. I've loved that idea for a lot of years, because I always wanted to have a Bond movie where MI6 gets destroyed, which happens a lot in Bond movies, and the old agents get called back in. So you get like Brosnan and Dalton who return to help out. I think that would be fantastic. But that's not what the producer now. MGM, or not MGM, Amazon now owns Bond, so maybe they will do that. But you look at the Daniel Craig Bond, and you've got this specific arc, and it doesn't make sense now that the other Bonds exist, because like Roger Moore references the wife that he once had, which was George Lazenby's character. I think there's another reference to it in the Timothy Dalton era, stuff like that. So, all right. So we're going to switch gears here and talk about Supergirl, because it comes out next week. And first thing I want to talk about is, are there any real fans of Supergirl? There are fans of the CW show Supergirl with Melissa Benoist. They're probably fans of the Helen Slater movie. And they're probably fans of the Supergirl that appeared in The Flash. But are they Supergirl fans? Yeah, see, what Ed says right there, I know nothing about Supergirl. And that's because there really isn't a lot about Supergirl out there. She's appeared in a lot of comics. She's died before. She was one of the major deaths in Crisis on Infinite Earths because they wanted to get rid of every Kryptonian other than Superman. They wanted to go back to him being the last son of Krypton. They also brought her back as an alien shapeshifter that worked with Alex, with Alex Luthor. She's got a very convoluted history. I think originally they made the character because Batgirl had become popular. So they went, oh, let's have a Supergirl. That's speculation. I can't say for sure that's why they did it, but they literally just had her pop up, gave her a weak backstory and threw her into comics. And they went, well, let's throw her into the future and have her deal with the Legion of Superheroes. Let's move her around. But live action wise, where most people know these characters is when they appear in live action. So all the people who look at the CW or Melissa Benoist Supergirl, they think that's her character. But take a step back and look at that Supergirl. She wasn't Supergirl. Just like as much as I loved Arrow, that wasn't really Green Arrow. Warner Brothers wouldn't let the CW do a Batman TV show, so they made the Green Arrow into Batman. They wouldn't let them do CBS and then CW do a Superman show, so they made Supergirl into Superman. Now, that one was a little more over the top as well, because not only did they suddenly make her a reporter, which she wasn't in the comics, they have her working for Cat Grant, a character from Superman. They bring Jimmy Olsen over to her story, another character from Superman. Her best friend is Windshot, the son of the toy maker, a Superman villain, because there really wasn't anything to work from. Supergirl doesn't have this super long history and, plethora of amazing stories to pull from. And the fact that they're pulling from a more recent story, The Woman of Tomorrow, tells you that, proves that. Now, Woman of Tomorrow is a great story. But if you ask the writer, Tom King, it's basically True Grit in space. And originally, it was a Lobo story with Supergirl as the sidekick. And when the editor got the pitch and said, well, we've got plans for Lobo. Why don't you just turn this into a Supergirl story? And that's what Tom King did. That's when it became, they ended up doing the book. And that's what we're getting. We were getting this Supergirl story. But Supergirl is not Superman. Superman was a child when he left Krypton. He was a baby. He had no real formative memories of the planet. When he gets to Earth, he is raised by the Kents. They give him everything he needs. He only finds out that he's not human when he's older. He gets a lot of information about Krypton from the crystals in his rocket ship. He doesn't have an emotional connection to, well, I won't say that. There is an emotional connection, but it's not an emotional connection from, oh, this is a place I loved and cherished and now it's gone. It's, this was my home world and it's gone. These were my birth parents and they're gone. And it's I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Having, if I was an orphan or if I had lost my parents when I was a kid and had step parents, I'd probably understand it better. But it's not quite the same intensity as being a teenager or a young adult watching your mother die, watching everybody around you die, having your father send you off before the last remnants of the city you were born in is destroyed, and you know your father's dead too, and all you have is this puppy, you know, and you didn't have years and years of normalcy before you find this out. This is all happening to you. That's Supergirl. That's what she's lived through. That's the trauma she is dealing with. That's why she's not gung ho to go out and save people or anything like that, because she's still in mourning. She's still PTSD. You know, I mean, she has had a horrible life at this point. You know, even when she was younger, if they do what's in the story, um, people were dying around her constantly because when um, Argo City breaks away from Krypton, they're able to save it. The land itself becomes poison as it drifts into another area with a different colored sun. And that's what's killing people. They've got to put a layer of lead paint down or lead protection to keep it from poisoning the people. And it's, still people are dying. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible life. And now everybody's gone and she's supposed to just move on. And, Clark is like, well, you'll find your people here like I did. And having somebody cheerful and supportive is great when you're ready for it, but she's not. And that's what this story is about. This is the story of her finding out who she is and what is her purpose now that everyone she loves is gone. So it's a very different story. It's a very different story from Superman. They're not the same person. They don't react the same way. But most cases, what we've seen is Supergirl portrayed as a younger, inexperienced version of Superman. And that's been a disservice to the character. And the people who, there are people going to be upset because, oh, this isn't the way Melissa Benoist played her, or this isn't the way Helen Slater played her. No, it's not. It's a little more realistic. It's a little more unique to the character. But no, it's not how she's been played in the past. And I think that's a good thing. This character needs to stand on her own. She needs to be her own character. It doesn't make sense to have a Superman clone at this point. We had a Superman clone. He was Ultraman. So, but that's just one of the things I'm seeing is that people don't quite understand what they're going to get with Supergirl. The other thing I'm seeing is people talking about box office numbers. Things are very different than they were. If you're comparing, how do I put this? We can't compare what's happening with superhero movies now to what happened when Endgame came out, or the first Wonder Woman movie, or the first Aquaman, stuff like that, because everything has changed. The world has changed. We went through a pandemic. We have multiple wars going on in this world. We have a more divided nation. Marvel used to be the big thing because you'd go in and you'd see these action stories, but there was some reality to them too. You know, they made them as realistic as possible. But I don't think people want that in the theaters anymore. I think people want some escapism. You know, they don't want what's on the news to be on their movie screen. I think Superman did that. He kind of stepped away from all that, even though there was some things. The yarn per the conflict between Barovia and Yarinpur kind of mirrored a couple different conflicts in the real world, but they weren't beaten. It wasn't beaten over our head with. So people don't go to the theaters expecting the same thing anymore, and in some cases, but they don't know that. So when they see a movie and it doesn't fit what they think they want, then they get up in arms. You know, I've been hearing about, oh, Supergirl's doing a horrible marketing thing. Really? Because I am seeing them everywhere. You know, oh, the first trailer wasn't that good. Everybody was talking about the first trailer. Then the second trailer. They're talking about Lobo. They're talking about Supergirl. They're talking about, you know, about the only thing they're not talking about is the villain. And as much as I would like for them to have a strong villain, the source material had a crap villain. I've read Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Krem of the Yellow Hills was not a good villain. He was a plot device. You know, there really wasn't a lot to do with the character. They were chasing him, but there really wasn't a lot to him. So we're not going to get this spectacular character from him. Okay. A lot of movies exist with less than spectacular villains. Would I like him to have a good villain? Yeah. Lex Luthor, great villain. But it doesn't have to be. As long as the story's good, that's what matters, right? Let's see. Ed says if she's drunky, skanky character like we saw at the end of Superman, or is this a new take on her? The character we saw at the end of Superman is going to be the character going into the film. But that won't be the character we get coming out of the film. This is a character who is, like I said, dealing with PTSD, dealing with all of the angst, the painful memories of losing everybody. So yeah, she drinks, and she's a horrible drunk. But that's not where the character becomes. And I've seen this in a lot of movies where people expect the hero to be the hero from beginning to end. No, you're going to get a character arc. You know, the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. A lot of people were mad because he let that guy die on the tracks. Yeah, that's not what we want to see from Daredevil. But the fact is that the Daredevil we got at the beginning of the movie was a vigilante, and the Daredevil at the end of the movie was a hero. He changed, he grew, and that's what we've got to expect So, no, she's not going to be in a good place when the movie starts. She's going to be a drunky, skanky person, as Ed puts it, because that's where she's left with all the trauma that's happened in her life. You know, she's using alcohol like a lot of people do to cover pain in her life. But this journey with Ruthie and the story of the purpose of the story is to find out who she really is and who she becomes. So, I mean, if that's a reason for you not to go see the movie, I wouldn't expect her to be that way for, you know, too long. By the end of the movie, she won't be that way. It says, I'm still so curious how Feel Good Superman and Supergirl are going to work with the dark horror elements that Clayface seemed to have. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. Well, I think that's actually kind of simple because comics do it all the time. If you're telling a story and you stay true to the tone of that story, that's what matters. But when you move a character to another story, as long as they play well in that new story, the tone of that story, it's not that big a deal, you know? Could Robert Pattinson's Batman work in David Cornsweet's Superman? Yes, he could. But once you go one way back and forth, that becomes difficult. But Clayface is a body horror thing. And there are elements of body horror in Superman. When he gets attacked by the nanites and they cover him and they fill his lungs and he can't breathe and he's fighting to pull them out and stuff, that's considered body horror. And that's what we're going to get with Clayface. So those horror elements already exist in Superman. We've seen them. Were they the level that we're going to get in Clayface? No. They'll be turned up in Clayface, but they already exist. You know, when he crash lands and he's having to pull them out of his lungs, that's body horror. So those elements are still there. Now, does it seem like a natural fit? No, but it can be done. So, but yeah, the other thing I see about Supergirl are people trying to predict the box office, and or the fact that they lifted the embargo on reactions to seeing the movie a week early. Now, no one ever lifts the embargo early. If they do, you take that as a good sign. And that's what most people did. And then the negative narrative got spun of, oh, well, they don't think the marketing is going well, so they need to change the narrative. So they opened up the embargo early. So the movie's not doing well, so they made people talk about it by the people who have seen it come out and talk about it. Okay. You know, oh, the movie's not going to do that well because it's only going to open for 40 to 55 million. Oh, that went up to 55 to 70 million. No, okay, it's back down again. No, it's up. Oh, it's going to open up. Second week is going to of Toy Story, so that's going to hold it down. There is this negative online push against this movie, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. First thing, I don't think anybody thought Supergirl was going to come out and blow the doors off the box office. I think 40, 50, 60 million is a good opening for Supergirl. Everybody is quoting it's a $175 million budget. We don't know that. That's the speculation. but we don't know what the actual budget is. And we don't know what the actual budget is, and we don't know how much they actually spend on marketing, which everybody says is doing a bad job. But so we don't know what the break-even point is. Now, Deadline, who's probably one of the better sites to follow, says the break-even point is 315 million. Okay. That seems doable if it opens at 50 to 60 million, because that's domestically. If it does okay overseas, how will it do overseas? Superman did not do well overseas. That's because it barely did anything in China, and a bunch of the countries did not open it. And USA is not popular in the world right now. You know, why? You can turn on the news to see, but it's just not. And a character like Superman, which is kind of wrapped in the red, white, and blue, even though he's wearing red, blue, and yellow, but he was truth, justice, and the American way. And even though they tried to change that slogan, he's still seen that way. But I think if people are putting up the numbers that Marvel makes, and Marvel hasn't been doing that great lately. I mean, Thunderbolt's only open for 74 million. Others have come in smaller. They're not doing huge box office because people aren't going to the theater like they used to. People don't go to the theater just to go to the theater. They go to see a specific movie. So the walk-by traffic that used to happen, not there. But how do I think this movie's going to do? Pre-sales seem to indicate that it's going to do in the 50 to 70 range. I don't see a problem with that. That's a good number for a derivative character who isn't that popular. Superman, popular. Supergirl, there's a reason there hasn't been a bunch of Supergirl movies. They tried it once, and then they tried a TV show. So, and it got canceled the first season, even though it then got moved. What this movie needs to do, if it can break even, awesome. And if 315 million is the break-even point, I think that's possible. Will it break 400? Maybe, but I don't think so. But if it's good, if the word of mouth is good, if people see it and like it and tell their friends, and it starts building up over the weeks, I think it's possible. But you look online, it's like, and the reactions, I love this. I go out to stuff like Variety, and they've got, I think it was Variety, or maybe it was a Hollywood Reporter. Supergirl initial reactions are mixed. And you go out there, and they've got like 40 reactions from people. And 3 of them are somewhat mixed. So, oh, I didn't particularly like this story. Oh, as a fan of the source material, I think they cut out too much of the story. Oh, the villain isn't good. The rest of everything is very positive. It's not an unflawed movie. It's got flaws, but people love Billy Alcock as Supergirl. They love Jason Momoa as Lobo. They think the story is good. They think the action is great. The look of it's good. That's the general consensus. But again, the headline says initial reactions are mixed. So, you know, I spent 5 years working for Bleeding Cool. And you work for a site like that or Variety or anything else, everything is based off your clicks. How many people read your story? And that's why we get these clickbait headlines. That's why we get, these horrific negative, is this the end for the DCU? I saw one site, Screen Crush, put up a video. Is the DCU in trouble and will Snyder come back? And that was posted today. Snyder's not coming back. There's no way in hell anybody is going to pay to bring back Snyder when you can see the numbers. You can see what his redo of the Justice League movie did. There's not that interest in it. And the actors who were in the Snyder's films don't want to come back. Sure, Henry Cavill did, but Ben Affleck didn't. Ben Affleck moved on. He had a chance to keep being Batman, and he passed. So that the negativity and stuff these people use to get you to click on their stories is what's feeding this. And then, of course, you have the Snyder Bros and the people who, if you're looking at a video of somebody who says, oh, this movie, the odds are this movie's going to flop. And that's the narrative out there, that Supergirl is going to flop because it's not going to make 120 million. And it's, all this other stuff. And it's never meant to make 120 million. But they do that. Well, go and look at what other videos they do. And if they've got 4 or 5 Zack Snyder videos in the last month because Zack is posting a picture of behind the scenes of Superman still, or Zack posted something else, then that person is probably leaning towards being biased towards Zack. And you're probably not getting the most balanced news. If a movie's going to do badly, it's going to do badly. And if it's going to do well, it's going to do well. And sometimes a movie can do well without being the biggest box office hit if it introduces the character and the people who see the movie like it. Because then, if it's a good movie, story-wise, it's going to go to home release. It's going to go to HBO Max or Disney Plus or whatever. More people will see it there. And then when you continue on the universe, more people are likely to go see the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Because the stories keep going and keep doing well. A movie could do amazing at the box office, but suck. And nobody wants to see the next one. Nobody's coming back. So, if Supergirl is a good movie, if critics like it, they don't have to love it. If critics like it and the audience likes it, and you can't trust Rotten Tomatoes for some of this stuff because there's so many people who will literally post stories just to bring it down. But you look at stuff like the cinema score. Those are the people leaving the theater being asked what they thought. If those numbers are good, then the movie's a success. Maybe it's just not a financial one, but as long as it's a success, it keeps driving the DCU forward. So think about it that way. It says, I think the old ways of looking at the box office numbers need to change because a lot of movies that are so-called bombs at the box office take off when they hit streaming. Exactly. Absolutely. Like I said, there are people now who want to see this stuff, but they don't want to go into a theater. Theaters are expensive. Theater tickets are insane. And then you add on a popcorn and a soda, and you're at what, $25, $30 to go to the theater? And if it's a date, or you wait till it's released on home video, and even if you buy it on demand and you get 4 people to watch it, you're saving money that way. Or you wait till it hits to one of the streamers for free that you already pay for, and you watch that. There are a lot of people that do that now. I don't go see as many movies as I used to. I used to go to every Marvel movie that came out. I went to see it in the theater. And the DC movies, and I went to see Bloodshot, the Valiant movie, right before the pandemic. And then I didn't see another movie in the theater until Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And after that was Superman. Literally, I've seen 2 movies in theater in the last 6 years. Because to me, that's, would I like to see them on the big screen and stuff? Yeah, but it's just not as important as it used to be. Nowadays, I've got a giant TV in my room. I watch that and I enjoy it. And I can pause it, go to the bathroom and come back and not have to ask what I missed. And I can go get a can of soda from my fridge, and I can throw some popcorn in the microwave and still spend less than the cost of the gas to go to the theater. So, yeah, things have changed. All right, guys, we are over the top on time. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys will have a great week. Happy Father's Day to you, the dads out there. I'm bad about that now. Since my father passed, I don't really keep track of Father's Day. But thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have a great week. And if you have any topics you want to talk about next week, let me know. If not, I will see you then. Have a great night. Have a great week. Take care.